Okay then guys, let's get this running as we want it to now. So all we have to do is repopulate the list. Well, the first thing that we're going to need is a prefab. So we might as well borrow the line from above. And then we loop through all the items. I'll just paste that in there for a second. Now what we want to do is loop through all our items passed and count the amount. There we go. And then we just need to repopulate this again, guys. So here we go. Let's repopulate based on the items passed elements. So instead of the prefab name, it will be items passed I for the actual initial count up here, dot the prefab name. There we go. So that will dynamically change the name based on when we first populated the list up at the top. Then we have to actually position the prefab in the correct location. So let's get the prefabs transform and set the parent to equal the content holders transform. Okay, right, cool. So let's see if this is working. Wait, before I do this, I actually have to call the function, otherwise it won't work again. So with this time, we want to order by distance. There we go. And I need to pass it in the items. Okay, cool. So there we go. Right, it should, in theory, spawn kind of an empty prefab at this point now. Okay, so let's just play the app. Click in, and there we go. Okay, perfect. So we've got the right prefab, and nothing should work. There we go. And the title is just the default. If I switch to food, it should be the food prefab. Perfect. Okay, cool. Let's do the title and the distance. So the same as before, let's create a text array called the text, and that can equal the prefabs get the component or components either in children, and the components that we're going after, all the text elements. There we go. Okay, so the text 0 text, there we go, should equal the items passed, items passed for the current item that we're on, which is I, and we're getting hold of the title. Okay, there we go. Now if I copy this and paste it below, then this one is going after the distance instead. There we go. But we're going to make it look pretty again. Like so, and say distance. There we go. Add the distance, but we need to cast it as a string. Well, not cast it as a string, sorry. We need to convert it to a string at the end, and then we'll add the letter M in my particular case. Okay, and then all what we need to do is get a hold of the button. So I might as well borrow from up here for a second. There's the button. Yep, here we go. Where are we? I'll paste you in there. So instead of going after the prefab, yep, that's fine. Button, button, button to string. And then all we have to do is add the listener to this new item. So we're going to pass in a button, which is the button. And it's also asking for a string URL, so that is on the items passed for the current item, and we're going after the URL. Okay, I think that's it, guys. Right, so in theory, if the list is ordered correctly, what I'll do is I'll just cancel this out for a second. There we go, so it doesn't run. And now, let's have a look at the results. So, let's go down to the parks. Woof. Here we go. The distance won't come in because I'm using my real GPS. 1 second while I just switch it back into debugging mode. Here we go. So, copy you and paste you there. And swap out my latitude for, I don't need to cut you, but there we go. And the longitude here can swap out U, and then I'll just copy out. Okay, so I'll not bother doing that on the URL down at the bottom. I just want this as a visual thing for the moment. So let's see if the distance loads in now, and that way we can compare to see if the results are correct. So here we go, down to parks, and we have 219, and it's the Francesc Park, whereas the closer parks are this one and the Castle Park. They're much closer, so I'm hoping that we get the weird one at the top, then the Castle Park, then this one, and then finally just the Park of Malgrat. So when I comment this back in, it should wipe all the items and do our fancy new order by distance, which then repopulates the list. Here we go. Okay, so fingers crossed guys, everything should work. And down we go, and are you ordered in the right manner? Yes and no. It's ordered in the reverse. Okay, right, 1 second then, let's swap the code. So if we're ordering the wrong way around, let's just order by and see what the results come at this time. But hey, at least you know how to do it in furthest first if you wanted to do it that way. Okay, right, are you in the right order? The Castle Park at the top. Yes, fantastic. We have the user added entry followed by the park, followed by Francesc, followed by the general park of Malgrat. And that, my friends, is how you can use GPS to load JSON data in and organize it by the nearest first. So all you'd have to do now would add additional functions if you wanted more functionality. I mean, here it's got order by distance, but maybe you wanted to add a bunch of buttons and do some kind of switch on what you actually order it by. Order by name or whatever you want, order by reviews for a restaurant, for example. And you can add extra graphic user interface buttons to the scene and just maybe lower this section down a little bit and add a little menu bar here, or maybe some buttons across the bottom of the app and make it so when you press them, it reshuffled the results. Okay, fantastic. So let's have a quick overview now. We've got everything ready to connect to the live data from Google. So we've got points of interest, food and drink, hotels, and the parks. The prefabs are swapping fantastically well. Everything's now organized and reshuffled by distance nearest first. We never checked the link. If you remember, I didn't switch my GPS, so I just want to make sure that the listener is connected and it opens up Google, which it does. Fantastic. However, it thinks I'm in the North Atlantic Sea because I don't have any GPS coordinates. There we go. Okay, so apart from that one slight thing, everything's working, guys. Fantastic. We've got our own nearest first place finder that's dynamic. So in the final video of this section, what we're going to do is connect this back to the real GPS and to use Google's API to pull data dynamically. Now, there's one thing I want to add on this as well. Earlier on in the course, I set a limit to how many requests per day I wanted to use on my app so that I didn't receive any charges. And it worked out at 165, which is right, but if I set my request limit to 165 in Google, for some reason I get a maximum exceeded request limit error. So I had to up the limit to about 500 or 1,000 or something like that. And I mean, for my personal purposes, I know I'm not going to go over that limit anyway. So just in case you guys had any issues trying to retrieve data, that's probably why. So in the next video then, like I said, let's look at Google Places and loading in the real data. I'm just going to jump back in my code now and rejig my my results to use the real data once more. Okay, fantastic. I'll see you in the next video, guys.